Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your natal Pluto squaring the Ascendant. And the square is a challenging aspect. So this is, this kind of contact is like having Scorpio rising, but the more problematic variety. And actually, Scorpio rising in and of itself is going to be sometimes, I would say, off-putting to other people because of the intensity, because of the uncomfortable vibe that you may give off to other people, like you can read their mind or something. But the square is a friction that is created. So your rising sign is the cusp of your first house of the self. And this means that the person is, when we talk about the ascendant, whatever sign is on the ascendant, that person is giving off an impression to others, a vibe to others that resembles that sign. Now, I say resembles because we have to look at the sun sign for sure. That's going to be the ultimate. Because the first house can be the body, it can be the way that you dress, but what are those things? Those things are superficial. If a woman is born with a very curvaceous body, she can't really hide that with a church dress too well. I mean, there might be women with those types of bodies who try their best to hide it, but she might draw the attention of men regardless. And one of the things that they may assume is that she is very even promiscuous, unfortunately. If you want to be promiscuous, I guess that's a good thing. But I mean, it's unfortunate if it's not the image that she wants to cultivate. And they may try to come on to her, and she may not want, it might be unwanted attention from men, not picking on men, but that's just biology. Men are visual creatures, so men may be very attracted to somebody who is very physically, womanly in an exaggerated way, right? But is that her true self? Even if she uses that to her advantage for a certain period of time, that doesn't mean that it's her ultimate self. The self is not the body. The body is not the self. And so the first house is what we see with our own two eyes about another person. And it could involve personality traits, but it's still almost like conditioned responses. Because, and I would say that even about the moon on an emotional level, because the person may have been programmed in a certain sense to act a certain way based on the family that they were born into. And the first house is the first house. So it's the first, and it's like the entryway into this lifetime, this incarnation. So I just want to get that really clear because I don't want people to think that we should identify with the ascendant or the first house, but it is going to be what other people see. So when you have a hard angle from Pluto there, and Pluto being this planet that is associated with transformation, but kind of the shadow self, it being explored, not only the self, but also the shadow of humanity. And thereby, it's like an exorcism of sorts where you're exposing the dark, dank garbage, and that purifies. Pluto is associated with healing, but It's like lancing the boil. So this square can show you to be something that is maybe a difficult type of personality. Oh my gosh, I'm not sure if I gave a shout out to the site or not. If I did already, forgive me. teaandrosemary.com. I was just seeing what they said. They really rock when it comes to these because it's not that easy to find information that I feel is relevant. I was looking at other sites and I just did not vibe with what they were saying about the square and the opposition. And it's very important because the personal aspect and how you come across to others is that should really be front and center when we're talking about these things. And this is especially true for the square versus the opposition. So I decided to create a separate video for the square because I do think it's going to manifest differently, even though those are both, the opposition and the square are both hard angles. But they have different enough influences that I wanted to mention that. So you may have like a certain paranoia that you feel this sense of oppression, like you're being kept from expressing yourself fully. Kind of like maybe when people have the sun square Pluto, where they feel like they can't express themselves. The first house is that the self, so that sense of, being able to. They put it here, having your freedom taken away, and I don't know if I resonate with that fully, but I would say something blocking one's ability to put themselves forward because of this overpowering influence in some way. And for sure, you may find that power struggles are something that you have to deal with in life, not just with one person. Maybe it starts with a parent and it continues throughout life. If your sun sign is in Aries or maybe even Scorpio or those can be quite rebellious and combative in a sense. Scorpio might be a more covert battle, and Aries just might be outright rebellious, but Aquarius could be like the rebel without a cause too, where they just chafe against any kind, I'm talking about if your sun is in these signs, any kind of person trying to impose their will on them. And the reason that I bring that up is that when you are rebelling, you are reacting, you are not acting. When you act, you're coming from your own soul's urges. When you react, you're acting based on what somebody else is doing or saying to you. So that isn't freedom. That isn't autonomy. When somebody reacts, but they can fool themselves into thinking so. So this can make you controlling because of these other people are trying to control. Then you can feel that you need to control. And that becomes part of your personality. And so other people perceive you as controlling. So it's like it's kind of like a vicious circle. This is another reason why I say that a person has to be on top of this. Because the very thing, and this is true of any kind of abuse, and certainly if a person has come from that background, which I do believe that these hard angles from Pluto to the Ascendant may start in childhood. And if they do, then the person already has this history behind them. So it's like a well-ingrained pattern. And so it's like a chicken and egg syndrome, like which came first? Well, the abuse came first, and that when I say abuse, I'm not talking about necessarily physical abuse, but some type of outer control that was excessive. The worst case scenario is abuse, because physical abuse, for instance, that for a child, that will work, and I put that in air quotes, but that is like a type of fear that is instilled into that child, and that can really create that need for control when somebody is older. So looking at these things and seeing how you feed into it, when you may still see these things kind of playing out in the world, and may feel like it's happening to you, and not realize how you are also perpetuating it, self-perpetuating this. Um, well, I'll just read you something that they say. They, verbatim, they say, you tend to create power struggles when you try to stick up for yourself. And that kind of that's kind of a confusing thing. I think that in those particular cases, that would be when you allow yourself to be controlled, and then you finally put your foot down. I don't know if that necessarily happens all the time with this aspect, though, because I feel like that would be more true of the opposition, but who knows, maybe not, because this is a very paranoid aspect. You are afraid of being controlled. You are afraid of not being free. And so you try to control situations. And I feel that this can be a very upsetting aspect to have if your sun is in Libra in particular, because Libra is a sign that really wants acceptance from other people. Libra is a very socially adept sign, and tends to be very popular, and comes across in a very nice way. But if you have your sun in Libra, or even your rising sign in Libra, and you're dealing with this square with Pluto, you can be like, what is it about me that is creating this? And in some cases, I do believe that the ascendant, maybe like if Pisces is at the ascendant too, that could be like the victim, not only mentality, but identity that the person, projects out on the world, and then they create that reality or attract that to themselves. It's really an important thing to note, that when I say creating that or attracting to someone, I'm not excusing abusive people at all. I'm not saying that they are not at fault. But the thing is that we can't control other people. Even though you may think you can, you can't. And therefore, the only thing you can control is your own perceptions and actions. So the more you learn about yourself, the more you will be able to work on those things that you need to work on. And this is a, look at your own tendencies towards vengefulness. They even mention violence, but these are extremes. Okay. I would also look at your aspects between the moon and Mars, because that can indicate, and separately too, they can indicate how Mars can be how you deal with anger, and the moon can be your emotional output altogether. And so if somebody has the moon in Aries, or I was going to say Scorpio, but Scorpio is more of a controlled, a simmering anger. The scorpionic influence is what the vengefulness can be, or the violence, but that is with an unevolved individual. That's not going to be all of you. But it says watch for it. Or they say you have, if you, I'll read it exactly. They said, if you don't work through your issues that create the square, you can end up escalating in your intensity and control to become violent or vengeful. When people escalate, it's because they have a lot of feeling that they need to do that. Like when somebody has a hair trigger temper, those people oftentimes, some people, they black out when they get angry. And they can be violent and they don't even remember it because they were probably severely abused when they were young. And that trauma, it's like ancestral karma or something that's passed down. And in order to break that chain, that person has to really go deep, deep, deep within themselves to find out what is the source of that trauma, so that they can see, because anger is coming from that. A lot of it to me is from fear, and the fear in your case can be that you're going to be controlled, and when you're a child, you are helpless. So that's where the lack of control comes from. And you can still be reduced to that childish or childlike. It's like you go back to when you're in that helpless position, and then you flip out. And I'm not, when I say you, I don't mean all of you. I'm just talking about people who have that. So, look at how you appear to others. If you appear angry, if people see you as bitter, just hostile, which is like kind of like this anger that is very, it's like, perennial anger, or taking offense to everything immediately, like kind of very touchy and things like that. Other people may see you like that. They mentioned being sarcastic. That would probably be if you have your rising sign in like Sagittarius or Gemini or Pluto in one of these signs. But I would say especially the Ascendant, because that's more personal in terms of your personality, and Virgo, where that's how you express anger, is through verbal, snark. Closed up. They use the term closed up, which means, that is like somebody who is Scorpio rising tends to be very closed into themselves, because they're not trusting. There's trust issues with this, you know what I mean? And when somebody is that's when you're suspicious, because you don't trust other people's motives. You may think that other people are very they're trying to do something to you. They're just being fake nice and stuff like that. That's like a real form of cynicism if you think about it. And you don't want to appear that way, like a jaded quality where you just feel like other people are not as they seem, but you ascribe dark motives to other people's behavior. I would even say that that tough guy image might manifest as this, like an aggressive type of a thing. They didn't mention it. They say controlling, but I think that like a hard kind of thing, like nobody's going to mess with you. And when you see people like that, if you are perceptive enough, you can see the pain that that person has been through, and that there's a lot of vulnerability there that they're kind of masking. So, what they say is that you're trying to be something other than yourself. And it's weird that they say that, because I do think that this is a part of the self. I don't think that this person is actually being phony. I think that this person it's just that they're showing the shadow more than, other people might. Like, it's kind of more on the surface. Some of those conflicts that are actually within yourself, they're coming out, and other people are seeing that, and they might be put off to that because they know, it's like having a difficult personality or complicated personality. But even your personality this is not the bulk of your personality, your rising sign. Your sun sign is what you aspire to be. It's how you choose to shine your light on the world. So if you frame this in terms of you're not going to allow anything or anything that has happened to you, anyone that has done you wrong in the past, to determine how you're going to show up in the world, then you have won. You have won. You have not allowed somebody else to control you, because if you actually, present yourself as a bitter person, then, you're being controlled by this other person who probably has had similar experiences in their childhood, in their past. So that's the irony about people who are acting controlling or kind of negative in general, that they are trying to push back against control, but they're still being controlled. But the circumstances will present themselves to you because of this behavior, which may be, like I said, I don't know if I said this because I just did 2 readings in a row, but that influence of the ascendant from maybe the first 30 years of life, that when you finally come into your own, you will maybe shed this aspect of yourself. But in those earlier years, that might really be when other people kind of teach you, based on their reaction to you, exactly what you need to change about yourself. And if you're somebody who is able to hear this, then you're going to be able to have a successful transformation. So anyway, I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, please click on the link below. I'm at rainamoonastrology.com. Thank you for listening. Take care. Bye.